Hello. Well, if I get the artwork right, then this is a stick. And this is a hornet's nest. And I am going to be poking that hornet's nest with the stick, because I'm going to be dealing with the Shamima Begum story. Shamima Begum is described as the schoolgirl who went off to marry some ISIS murderer. All right, now, when Tommy Robinson was arrested outside that Leeds courthouse and he was thrown into jail without a proper trial in contravention of the law, I got very angry, as did quite a few people. There are things that Tommy Robinson has done and said with which I disagree. I don't worship the man, you know. He's a human being just like the rest of us, although perhaps not just like the rest of us, because he's braver than most and he has more concentration than most, for sure. Anyway, he's still got the human characteristic of being wrong occasionally. And he shouldn't have been on that court doorstep. It was a grey area and he put himself unnecessarily into danger. However, what happened thereafter was that he was 100% right and the state was 100% wrong. And I got very, very angry because that was wrong, what happened to him. Now, we have to decide as a society where we stand in regard to the law. When the law was misapplied in the case of Robinson, most of the people watching this video will have felt a great sense of outrage. Because either we are, as a society, ruled by law, or we're a society that decides what we want to do based on how we happen to be feeling at that particular moment. That's what's happening in most Muslim and African societies, I'm sorry to say, and you can see it leads nowhere. And now, with this Begum business, we're allowing our emotions to get in the way of what we think should be done with this stupid woman. And she is a woman who went off to marry an ISIS murderer. The thing is, she is a British citizen. As far as I know, she isn't a citizen of any other country. And if she is, well, that's different, and everything I'm saying with regard to her is irrelevant. But it isn't irrelevant to any other cases we might come across with British citizens that we trawl out of the depths of some flea-bitten transit camp somewhere in the Middle East. So, assuming that British citizenship is all that Begum has, then we have to take her back. There isn't any way round it. That's a primary principle of international law. You can't make somebody stateless. That's been the case since the 1961 Convention on Statelessness. So let's look at Begum as a person, and let's start off with my absolute certainty that she's a pretty awful person. She's a dreadful piece of work. She has a complete inability to emote. Despite all that's happened to her, she's still stuck in her own me mentality. What is she? She's a bloody millennial. Yeah, that's what she is, a millennial. The fact that she's stirred some toxic Islam into the mix doesn't change her absolute similitude to those idiots on Big Brother and TV dating games who can think only of how the world affects them and how their opinions are the only ones that count. And they're the centre, and everything they do and think is right. And if there's something going wrong around them, that's not their fault. It's the fault of the world around them. That's exactly what this girl is. She's a millennial. An Islamist millennial. No, she's an Islamic millennial, because let's face it, she hasn't done anything that isn't instructed in the Quran or the respected hadiths. She went to marry an ISIS warrior so she could help establish the heavenly kingdom. And the fact that this heavenly kingdom has fallen apart hasn't changed her view of herself as the centre of the universe, and that universe owes her a living. And she's an idiot. But she's a 21st century idiot. She's what we've created with our education system. And our education system that has classes in emoting, but not classes in literature. And this is what they've produced. A group of kids who are as far from emoting as it's possible to be. Now, speaking as a teacher of literature, I have my theories about how that happened. When you read books, you learn about emoting. You don't need special classes because books tell you about how other people feel. But they've stopped reading books now. They give kids sheets with bullet points of the plots, what happened in the stories, because that's what'll get them through the exams. A great novel is just a series of events in our educational system's viewpoint. But that's not what good literature's about. It's about the inner world, and this is not what those kids are learning. Begum saw a severed head in a rubbish bin, for God's sake, and she didn't feel a thing. She has no inner world at all. Just what she wants. That's all that's important to her. So let's get back to discussing her position right now. She's an idiot, probably the result of too many generations of cousin marriage. She's a religious fundamentalist, and she's British. Our schools turned her into this sort of a monster. We are responsible for it. And unfortunately, there's no legal case for not taking her back if British is all she is. And the fact that we find her and everything that she stands for simply repellent is neither here nor there. Not if we are a state that is governed by law. There are people in the British establishment who find Tommy Robinson repellent. They're wrong, but that's their opinion. And whatever their opinions, they are supposed to act correctly when they're dealing with him. They didn't. And with any luck, they'll pay for that. So, Begum is repellent, and we still have to deal with her. We have to decide what crime she committed. For instance, if all she did was marry a couple of ISIS soldiers, is that a crime? There were British women married to Germans during World War II. Did we regard them as criminals when they stuck by their husbands in Germany? We'll have to see if Begum actually took part in any violence or slavery. I can imagine she would have done, but that would be difficult to prove because she's certainly not going to admit to owning slaves or possibly being part of those crews that went round beating inappropriately veiled women to death in the street. However, we can certainly put her through whatever we find about the process of investigation. Certainly, she voluntarily went to a country that had declared war on us. However, you see, she was a minor at the time. It's all very complicated, and we shouldn't forget that. I'll tell you what, though, if she's incarcerated, she should be kept out of company of other Muslims. One of the big problems with British jails right now is that Muslims are put all in the same places and they form gangs and they terrorise the other prisoners and sometimes actually force conversions on them and sometimes resort to murder to discipline backsliders and people who don't fit in. We have Robinson's inside stories on that, haven't we? We have to remove these people from the company of other Muslims. Our prison system is broken because it actually encourages that sort of behaviour, just radicalising and reinforcing the beliefs of each other. And then there's the question of what to do with her child. She should not on any account be allowed to keep him, and neither should her bloody parents. They were the ones who brought her up, weren't they? They created that person she is, as she is, because of the way they brought her up. The person we see in front of us, draped in black and telling us that heads in baskets is no big deal. A woman who's abused her first 2 children so badly they both died. Whatever she did to them, she took them to a war zone and kept them there. And now she has a 3rd child and she's abusing that just by existing around him. That child should be taken away from her and put out for adoption, and probably not into a Muslim family either. That could be her punishment. But we have to face the fact that if we are a country ruled by law, then we have to listen to that law. And when it tells us we have to take her back, we have to take her back. What we do with her here requires a little more thought. Thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe, and if you wish to donate, click the subscribe star link where you can make a one-off payment or set up a regular contribution, or I have a PayPal account at grannyopteryx@gmail.com. Till next time.